Hey everyone, Sarah Nova again. And this week we have a little bit of an interesting arrangement of bikes to talk about. What we have is four dirt bikes that have recently been given to us, and we just happened to, yesterday we picked up two more of these, and we said, hey, you know what? In the past 6, 8 weeks, we've been given a total of four vintage, enduro and enduro, dual sport, trials bike, basically vintage dirt bikes, bikes that are pretty cool, and we just thought we would show them off. Going through them all, we have a pair of Yamahas. Did not come from the same place, but this is a Yamaha CT1, which is a 175cc. Enduro is the old word for dual sport or adventure bike, if you will, which is basically a dirt bike that has lights on it, made for riding on the road and off the road, and has to be street legal, and basically an good old fashioned dual sport, but called the Enduro way back when. 175. It looks like somebody was in the process of putting this one back on the road. Has a modern headlight bucket, some modern plastic blinkers, and modern tail light, Amazon special, and a switch gear that is not connected to much of anything, but is a little bit shinier than the rest of the bike. So I guess in looking at this is somebody had this thing running and was trying to make it back into a street bike again. And for the hills of Western Massachusetts where we are, this would be a ton of fun. Big enough that you can hop on, the 50-mile-an-hour roads and get somewhere, but also just tuck down any little cow trail or dirt road, fire road, and have a ball. Little brother over here is a Yamaha AT1. Now, I don't know the exact years of either of these bikes. I haven't run the VIN numbers on them, the VINs on them, but they're 60, I think this came out 67 perhaps, into the early till 71. This is 69-ish maybe. So late 60s into the very early 70s. Very similar bike, enduro as well. Supposedly, originally did come with all the lights and blinkers and stuff. Obviously missing some of that now, but you have speedo and tack kind of stuff you would not have on a strictly motocross bike or strictly off-road bike. 125cc instead of 175cc. But otherwise very similar in setup. One difference between the two though is this one has a much smaller 18-inch tire, whereas this has a full-size 21-inch tire, which is still basically the kind of fronts that we're using on modern dirt bikes. Is a little bit better at going over obstacles, rolling over big things, rocks, pits in the ground, that kind of stuff. So a little more nod towards serious dirt riding with this one, as opposed to more of the street bike that can go off-road with this one. But I don't think there's too many fundamental differences in the frames and the rest of the chassis, suspension, etc. Kind of similar. You'll see both of these bikes, and actually all of these bikes, are very short. This is before the era of long travel suspension. That happened mid-late 70s into the early 80s, where bikes gradually got longer and longer until you get to the dirt bikes we have today, where seats are up this high. You need a step stool to get on them. But in the old days, this was basically, a dirt bike was just a regular motorcycle that was light, had a little bit knobby tires on it and high handlebars, but not much else. Not much else was different. So moving down the line here, some nice crust on that one. This one is a 1975 Honda XL100. Again, enduro. You got all the lights. You got a gauge. You got this is original Honda blinkers on here. This one we know was a one-owner bike. We got this one from a mechanic friend of ours who, had it, bought it new, or their father bought it new. I forget the whole story, and has had it ever since. Been the same family ever since 1975, and they basically realized they weren't doing anything with it. And Sam, who, if you watch these videos, works for us here, was in there getting his car worked on, and the conversation was struck up, and they said, "Hey, why don't you guys come take this bike away?" So we did. Anything like this, when you have a history on it, knowing it's a one-owner machine, also the fact that it's a Honda 4-stroke, there's a really good chance that this is not going to take a whole lot of work to make it riding again. A full restoration would be something else, but it's fairly well preserved, so you could do a lot of little work on this thing, have it be really beautiful and running with not too much effort. Motor kicks over, carb clean the battery, you'll probably get it running, and then you're going through the chassis and making sure everything else works on it before you actually did anything serious on it. But kind of a cool little gem. These 100cc Hondas punched way above their weight. 100cc 4-stroke is not a lot, to think about. The 125 2-stroke, far more horsepower. but the torque on this is remarkably good. They're geared very low, so first gear actually can pull pretty good, and for anything under, say, 40 miles an hour, they're actually kind of capable and fun little bikes. First time I worked on one was when Nova was just getting off the ground, and we had a customer who had one of these. And I remember ripping it around our first parking lot and going over a little dirt pile that was in the parking lot and thinking, why would you want anything more than that? It's great for a little dirt bike. Reliable, simple, and kind of cool. You'll see the bike is getting a little taller as far as design goes. This was when the mid 70s motocross was super popular. The 60s, late 60s, they sort of came in as a craze, and in the 70s got huge, and bikes got more and more specific to the task at hand. So it sort of generated, it's morphing into more of a strict dirt bike with lights on it. A little more ground clearance. You see the high fender on this one. Same, the CT1 has it as well, but you see that there. Whereas the dirt bike specific fender, whereas this is more like a street bike on the AT1 down low. And then going in the history of getting specialized in dirt, we have this RL250 trials bike. It's Suzuki RL250, 1975, I believe, according to the data manufacturer. And this is the first generation of trials-specific machines, where if you don't know what trials riding is, it's slow speed through obstacles, up huge embankments and streams and rocks and, very technical slow speed riding. And you need a bike that you can stand on the pegs. You don't need a lot of seat. You need a wide handlebar that can turn quite a bit, lock to lock. This is almost 180 degrees, not quite, but far more than a street bike would have. So you can do very short radius turns. And prior to this generation, the Yamaha had one, and I have a '76 Honda TL250 trials bike. All these are sort of first generation trials bikes. Prior to that, you would take something like this and go trials riding, just a regular motorcycle, and go doing it. So as motocross bikes and dirt bikes and enduros and motocrossers got taller, more ready to take jumps, fenders got bigger, suspension got better, that kind of stuff happening. The trials world started doing this. Seats got smaller, gas tanks got narrow and tiny because you don't need a lot of fuel. You're not going very far. The gearing was crazy. I mean, the gearing on a trials bike, first and second, are practically half gears. Third is like your normal first gear. All three of those are incredibly close to each other, so you can have very minute changes in your shift pattern, and to get in your power band, stay in your power band, and all made for slow speed stuff. So things got more and more specialized, and this is the era right around where it started to happen. A couple of cool details on here. There's the swing arm. You'll notice has a little fill cap on it, and below that a little drip tube. And what that is an oiler for the chain. So you fill up this tube of the swing arm with just engine oil, and it slowly will drip out onto the chain, which will keep the chain lubed, keep it nice and lasting much longer, and kind of handy in places where you're going through a lot of streams and sandy stuff, and you want to make your chain last as long as possible. Yeah, you notice, I sort of mentioned before, but the bars are very wide. You want a big, nice grip. You'll notice the low fender, and this is something that continues on most trials bikes even now, because you're not going fast through the muck. You're not going fast through the sand. You don't need a big high fender to stop the stuff from throwing. You just need something to stop it whipping up onto your immediate vicinity. So the low fender works just fine, and kind of interesting how it's different than a dirt bike in that way. We have a customer who has a very nice one of these, so it's funny to see this one, and it's all of its rat beauty. I'm someone who loves a patinaed bike. This one is fairly rough, but I would happily ride this as is. My TL250 is just pretty much exactly the same kind of condition. But we have a customer who has a really beautiful one of these. It was fun to work on and fun to ride, and hopefully someday we get to park them side by side. So yeah, some cool vintage dirt bikes. We're not sure what we're doing with them at the moment, but we do like to save bikes from the scrap heap. This is stuff, none of this should belong in the scrap heap. At the very least, if they don't get restored, I imagine the RL and the XL are going to stay whole for sure. These two may or may not be beyond beyond of saving at this point. But at the very least, if they aren't, then they're great for parts so other people who are running these things can keep them on the road. The parts that were made for a purpose can stay those parts instead of getting recycled into tin cans and that kind of thing. So if you have any experience with any of these machines, let us know, please. We love to hear the old stories and thoughts about what was going on at this time period of dirt bikes. We're in the Berkshire. We're close to the Berkshires here. Huge history of dirt riding, trials riding, even hill climbing, stuff like that. Not as much of it nowadays, but there's still a lot of it going on. So it's nice to have these in this region. So yeah, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and see you next time.